Hi, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show, and we're about ready to begin.
Hello, I'm Marty Levinson, and welcome to the Northtown News Magazine.
For the identity of the real Marty Levinson, stay tuned to the Northtown News Magazine.
Come on, baby, don't you wanna go? Come on, baby, don't you wanna go?
Hi, I'm Marty Levinson. Welcome to the Northtown News Magazine show with the greatest cameraman around, Sonny Hirsch, and your host, Avi Myers.
Thank you, Marty. Avi Myers, Northtown Neighborhood News Magazine. Presentation of Sonny Hirsch and myself. Dial us up on the web at www.ntnm.org. CAPS24.org. We're real big on community policing in the 24th District. They still have a semblance of community policing. At least they're in favor of it. Unfortunately, we only have 3 officers compared to 11. But at least they're doing their best to give us the most possible exposure in meetings they can, given their limited resources. We wish we could say the same about the rest of the city, but there's a lot of interesting things going on in the city. Want to welcome you to our next guest. We're sort of switching topics. We were so into the elections. We had so many, we had probably close to about 60 different judicial interviews. I can't believe the way people were swamping us. And I invited none of them. They all just came, I shouldn't say crawling out of the woodwork. It was great having them on the show, and it was great giving you an opportunity to meet them. But you know what? This is very fortunate because we're filming the day after the infrastructure vote in City Council. And it is our pleasure to have one of the few maverick voices in City Council. You like that word, Kelly? And thank you, Kelly Turan, for getting him here today. And that is Alderman Bob Fioretti. How you doing?
Great to be here again. Thanks.
First of all, thank you. It's good to see you. There is a lot going on in City Council right now.
Oh, I think there's people don't realize how much is always going on. Even under the Daley era, those 4 years, so much happens that, and it's speed voting. Not speed cameras, it's speed voting on what happens over there. From the Daley era until today, and what we saw under the Rahm era, it's the same thing. Yes, the last few days we've had controversial projects, speed cameras a week ago, and now we had this infrastructure trust voting. There's a lot of ideas that are being proposed. People are putting those up on the table, and the votes go up or down. The unfortunate thing is that I've been seeing, even under the Daley era, that there was not enough community input, ward input, or hearing from the people. And that's what's happening now.
There was almost none, and there isn't now either. I think it's even worse than it was under the Daley era, which is saying a lot. As for the speed cameras, I'll just do my little shtick here. I live a couple of doors from a school. Okay, we've got a very able crossing guard, Mary Engel, who's out there during the day, making sure traffic slows down and they're respectful and all the rest of it. We've got speed bumps in my alley, speed blocks down this block, speed blocks down the other block, speed blocks down every single side of the school. All the stop signs in the world, plus so many potholes you couldn't speed if you wanted to. And we need speed cameras on top of that?
Well, I agree with you. And as you know, I think the last time I was on the show, we talked about the second ward, about having more schools than any other ward. And we have 40 schools. And the first thing I did when I came into office was talk about issues of traffic around the schools. And in a lot of the schools, we had traffic studies and surveys done by CDOT because there was problems. But what we did in terms of traffic calming, I'll call it devices, is put in stop signs, speed humps, or speed humps and then stop signs, and bump outs all at the same time. The crossing guards love it. They've all thanked me a number of times on it, and you can see that it really calms the traffic in and around the schools. So as I look at the issue of speed cameras, I thought there were much more less expensive ways to address the problem than a speed camera for a highly influential connected firm.
One of the things that really bothers me too, to be honest, is that even though he shortened the hours are still not reflective of when school's in session, number one. Number two is, during regular business hours, this is really let's get people. The mayor talks about how there's been no increase in taxes. Okay, I know what my property tax bill is. Okay, I know how much my water bill went up. I mean, those aren't those kind of taxes. Oh well, it was the schools that did it. He's not in charge of the schools. It's like I know that I am paying more money to the city than I ever have. Okay, and
Well, yeah, and we say that because, and I agree with what you're saying or where you're going with it, but I think we have to look at why Chicago is becoming the most expensive city. What are the reasons that it's becoming so expensive to live here?
Okay.
In the last decade, we lost 200,000 people in the census. And why? But that doesn't mean we only lost 200,000 people that moved out. Don't forget, people were coming into the city. We have a huge university community in the South Loop, West Loop. 67,000 students come
that's
there.
grown tremendously.
And-
The South Loop, the area around the Loop. I mean, I remember when it was scary to go downtown after dark.
Right, right.
And now it's like people live there. There's tons of people that move back in.
Students make it 24/7. That's what we have to realize. And because they're always down there, they want to go out, they study late, they want to go someplace for either entertainment or just to eat and then go back to their rooms and study. We have about 15,000 students that live in the South Loop that have added to that. And coupled with, I don't know how many, I think it's about the same number of teachers, faculty, staff, employees that also live in the South and West Loop. So when you see 30,000 people or more that are just planted in that area and live in that area, therefore, they help the whole area. So and going to it, we have to figure out why, if we lost 500,000 people and then maybe 300,000 came into the city via the students, via people just moving in here, we have to understand that we are still losing people to come into the city. And overall, it affects our budget, it affects our taxes. The foreclosure crisis keeps continuing, and I see that continuing for another 18 months. We have to find ways to put people to work, get jobs for them, increase our educational opportunities for all of our citizens.
By the way, I want to tell you, I'm not against the idea that you're right. At one time, the population of Chicago was 3,620,000 people. Mm-hmm. Now it's it's 1 million people less than that. Right. And you've got the same physical area, maybe a little more, because I think O'Hare wasn't necessarily part of it at that point in time.
I always carry something around with me as you're talking about the numbers.
By the way, you're really good on numbers. That I have to say from past shows.
Thanks. Chicago has, according to the census, 2,695,598 people for our last census. And of course, with 50 aldermen, it comes out to be 53,911 people we should each be representing. But I'll give you two other cities. New York has 8,175,133 under their census. They have 51 council members. So do the math, it comes out to be
160,000.
Yes, exactly. LA, 15 council members. 3.7 million, almost 3.8 million.
240-something thousand apiece.
252, 841.
Okay.
So think about what the challenges are on those council members, those aldermen in those cities. Houston, I think there's a couple other ones that are actually astronomical too. Houston only has 11 council members, and they have 2,099,000. So that makes it 190,859 that each council member should be representing.
Wow. Well, let me ask you, because, I mean, to my way of thinking, I'm not against the idea that I have to kick in more money, even if I've had a bad economic year. I mean, the city still needs to run. So why not just go about it honestly and do it through, like, legitimate kind of taxes instead of, speed cameras? And, I mean, I don't think anybody really believes Emmanuel one bit about that it's there to protect the children.
Well,
it's a money grab.
I was approached by several people after, and of course I did vote against the cameras, not only on the money grab issue. There are other issues because we have so many cameras in the city of Chicago. We have Homeland Security cameras. There are cameras from the various CPS, CPD, even the Park District, CHA has cameras. We have cameras on virtually every block, so we have to be careful on how many more cameras we put in.
So are we big brothering?
I think we're getting there.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right, by the way.
Yeah, and right. And so it takes all of us to look at what are we doing with all these cameras. And what was the true aim? Was it to really catch the speeders or to catch truly bad guys who commit crimes, who are speeding off? And we'll watch where the first 10 to 20% of these cameras go and what areas they go in the city. And I think that'd be illustrative of what this is all about.
It's going to be interesting to look at. Well, I could talk to you a lot longer, but we only have so much time. I want to talk about the infrastructure. And, I mean, this scares the hell out of me. You're basically, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you're parceling off the authority to do billions of dollars worth of stuff to a small committee that is going to be out of sight of not just the city council, but the public.
And elected representatives, and that's the problem. Elected representatives carry the jacket to handle the flack that's thrown at them. And there's truly not that much oversight over it. I don't know why we created a creature of the council and threw in all these, and they call them coordinate agencies, not sister agencies as usually defined under the state statutes and under the city law. They put CHA in there, Chicago Park District in there, Chicago Public Schools, and they said, no, we can't have the Inspector General subject to them. We can't do this subject to them. Well, if we threw them all in the mix and it's being funded for the startup costs from $200,000 and $2.5 million from the city council, then they should all agree that they will come under the domain of what we were asking for in yesterday's vote, to make it open, transparent, so people can understand each and every transaction that was being presented, to make sure that the taxpayers in the long run are not the people who are on the hook for those transactions. And there are a lot of questions to be asked. I think retrofit's a good idea, don't get me wrong. I think finding new ways to fund infrastructure improvements, because this city needs a lot of them. But when we look at, we know retrofitting and making everything green and dealing with the electrical problems are sure hits, because who's ever going to do that, we will save money. It will cost us about $250 million on that. We will save about 25 million. We, the people, the city, will save 25 million a year if all these buildings are retrofitted the right way. But we have almost $1 billion right now in the TIFs. We could have paid for that out of the TIFs. We could have saved the taxpayers money instead of in the long run.
It seems to me that every time you're borrowing money, it's going to cost money.
That's correct. That's correct.
And the money you're taking in is not going to be the same. And by the way, you're right about all that extra money in the TIFs. That's it's just unbelievable. And you know what? From my standpoint too, if you're going to tax people, just do a fair tax. You know, I actually don't have a car, so I do rent cars every now and then. But even when I do, the speed cameras, I get the feeling that like the city's trying to get me.
Right.
You know, as opposed to, why don't we do something that's positive? You know, why is effort being spent on getting people? You know, why can't we do, you know, like, whether it's adding to the property tax or adding to the sales tax. I know people are overtaxed, but you know what? It's going to come out of our pockets anyway. So maybe it's time to be realistic about it.
And on the first time I was in the council in '07, and I voted against the budget that the mayor proposed, I said we have to find ways of streamlining city government. We have to find ways of making it much more economical, and we have to find new revenue streams. And we have to deal with our pension crisis, and I was talking about the looming pension crisis then, and I also talked about the looming foreclosure crisis, because I saw what the numbers were happening then at that point. And as soon the next day, I got calls from all these people. You can't be talking about downsizing city government. You can't be talking about the pension, and you can't be talking about all these other items then in '07 that they're now talking about in '12. And I think, you know, if we don't start being a forward-thinking legislature and a forward-thinking council and city, we're going to lose all the way across the board, and we're going to tax people out of the city.
That's already happening.
Oh, I agree.
And you know what? We didn't even get into other subjects too. I could tell you how in outlying areas like I am, there's probably a vacant building on at least every other block. And one of the things, just to put a seed in your mind for another day, all the group homes, there's a group home here virtually every block. I got one next door to me. Now, it's not so bad. It's for ladies who, you know, who basically had Down syndrome, that sort of thing. But there's group homes for troubled teens. It's really a major, major problem.
I agree. And as we look at those, I don't know what's happened with our society in the last, especially the last 20 years, but we're faced with more problems and we don't have the solutions. So we really got to come together and try to work on those solutions collectively, because I believe that if we all get together, work them out, we will find the right kind of solutions.
No, I agree. And one of the problems too is, you know what? Every time there's a group home like that, even though these people are making a fortune off that home, it's off the real estate tax rolls.
That's correct. I know. I agree with you too. And there's ways that we have to look at all of that right now too.
Yeah, I mean, these people, 10 years ago, these people were getting almost 40,000 a person. There, times 8 people is 320,000. You know, and this is it's the same house I have, 1,400 square feet. It's nothing gigantic, so they're cramming all those people there. They're taking in over 300,000, and they're off the tax rolls.
And at the same time, not only are they off the tax rolls, and say they're not paying the taxes, the proportionate share for the city, but think about what we're doing for our Board of Education, where 50% of our taxes go to the Board of Education. We have to find new ways to fund education in this state, and we've had a Democratic governor, a Democratic state House and Senate, and they've yet to be able to do that all these years. And I think somebody ought to get down there and start raising enough holy heck about it and say, what are we doing down there?
I like that very much. And by the way, I really hope you come back on the show soon, because there are so many subjects I would like to talk to you about, and you're one of the few people that's actually honest about these things.
Oh, okay.
So
Thanks.
that I appreciate a lot.
Thanks.
So I want to thank you very much, Alderman Bob Fioretti, and thank you, Kelly Tarrant, for arranging it, and I look forward to having you on again soon.
You got it. Thanks.